Commander Jake Morrison stood at the main control panel of the United Earth Defense Station. The red planet Mars turned slowly below him through the thick glass windows. He had been watching the stars for 3 hours now, waiting for something that might never come. The coffee in his cup had gone cold long ago. The communication officer at the far end of the bridge was Lieutenant Amy Foster. She was young, maybe 25, with short brown hair and sharp green eyes. She looked up from her screen with worry written all over her face. "Commander Morrison, sir," she said in a quiet voice. "We are getting a signal from deep space. It is not like anything we have seen before." Jake turned around and walked over to her station. The screen showed waves of energy moving in patterns that made no sense. The signal was strong, much stronger than anything humans had ever sent into space. "How long have we been receiving this?" Jake asked. "About 10 minutes, sir. The signal is getting stronger. I think something big is coming our way." Jake felt his heart beat faster. For 50 years, humans had been looking for signs of alien life. They had found nothing. Now, it seemed, the aliens had found them first. "Put it through the main speakers," Jake ordered. The bridge filled with a strange humming sound. Then, without warning, the sound changed. It became words. The voice was deep and cold like winter wind blowing through empty space. "People of the planet you call Earth," the voice said. "We are the Galactic Dominion. We have watched you for 50 of your years. We have seen enough." Every person on the bridge stopped what they were doing. Even the computers seemed to go quiet. Jake felt sweat on his forehead despite the cool air in the station. "I am Ambassador Zethka of the Dominion. Council," the voice continued. "Your species has spread beyond your home world without permission. You have built weapons without guidance. You have acted like children playing with fire in a house made of wood." Dr. Lisa Carter had just entered the bridge. She was the station's top scientist, a woman in her 40s with gray hair and smart blue eyes. She moved quickly to stand next to Jake, listening to every word. "The Dominion has ruled this galaxy for 10,000 of your years," Zethka said. "We bring order to chaos. We bring peace to those who cannot find it themselves. We have decided that your species needs our help." Jake and Lisa looked at each other. This did not sound like an offer of help. "You will stop all travel beyond the orbit of your home planet," the alien voice commanded. "You will give us your weapons technology. You will accept our teachers and our laws. You have 7 of your days to agree to these terms." The bridge was so quiet that Jake could hear his own breathing. "If you refuse," Zethka continued, "we will do what we have always done with species that cannot learn to behave. We will remove the problem." The signal ended. The bridge filled with the normal sounds of computers and air systems, but everyone stayed frozen in place. Captain Ryan Bell chose that moment to walk onto the bridge. He was a big man with gray hair and a face that had seen many battles. He looked around at the shocked faces and knew something important had happened. "What did I miss?" he asked. Jake played the message again. When it finished, Ryan sat down in the nearest chair and rubbed his face with both hands. "Well," Ryan said after a long moment, "that could have gone better." Dr. Carter was already working at a computer station. "I am running analysis on the signal," she said. "The technology behind this transmission is far beyond anything we have. The power needed to send a clear signal across interstellar space like this would require energy sources we do not even understand." "How far beyond us are they?" Jake asked. Lisa looked up from her screen. "If our technology is a candle, theirs is the sun." The next few hours were the busiest in the station's history. Messages flew back and forth between Mars and Earth. Every government, every military leader, every scientist who mattered was brought into the discussion. President Maria Lopez called an emergency meeting of the United Earth Council. The debate started immediately and grew heated fast. Jake watched it all through a video link from his station. "We have to be realistic," said Defense Secretary Robert Kim. "If they can destroy us, we should listen to what they want." "Listen to what they want?" General Sam Parker stood up so fast his chair almost fell over. "They want us to crawl on our bellies like dogs. They want us to give up everything that makes us human." "What makes us human is staying alive," Robert shot back. "Dead heroes are still dead." President Lopez raised her hand for quiet. "General, Parker, what are our chances if we fight? Sam Parker looked around the room at all the worried faces. Against technology that far ahead of ours? Honestly, Madam President, we would lose. Badly. Then why should we even consider fighting? Asked the Secretary of Science, Dr. Ellen Moore. General Parker leaned forward across the table. Because some things are worth dying for. Freedom is one of them. The right to grow and explore and make our own mistakes is another. If we give up now, we will spend the rest of human history wondering what we might have become. The debate went on for hours. Jake watched politicians and generals argue about the future of the human race. Finally, President Lopez called for a vote. It was close, very close. But when the numbers were counted, Earth had made its choice. Jake was given the job of recording humanity's response. He sat in his small office on the station, looking at the camera that would carry his words across space to beings who could destroy his entire species. He thought about his daughter, Katie. She was 8 years old and lived with her mother in New Geneva. Katie loved to run through the gardens there, chasing butterflies and asking questions about everything she saw. She wanted to be an explorer when she grew up, to see new worlds and meet new people. If Jake sent the wrong message, Katie might never get that chance. If he sent the right message, she might not live to see her 9th birthday. He pressed the record button. Ambassador Zeth Ka of the Galactic Dominion, Jake began. This is Commander Jake Morrison speaking for the people of Earth and all human colonies. He paused and took a deep breath. We have heard your offer. We understand that you have great power and that you believe you are helping us. But we must respectfully decline. Jake felt his hands shake slightly, but his voice stayed steady. Humanity has always been a species that explores, that asks questions, that reaches for things just beyond our grasp. It has gotten us into trouble before, and it probably will again. But it is also what makes us who we are. He looked directly into the camera, knowing that alien eyes would see his face. We do not seek war with the Dominion. We respect your power and your long history. But we cannot and will not give up our freedom to grow and learn and explore. Some things are worth fighting for, no matter the cost. Jake turned off the recording and sat back in his chair. In 7 days, the aliens would receive his message. What happened after that would determine whether humanity had a future, or just a very short and violent ending. Outside his office window, Mars continued its slow turn. In the distance, he could see the lights of human settlements on the planet's surface. People were down there living their lives, working and loving and dreaming of tomorrow. Jake hoped they would get the chance to see it. The Dominion's answer came faster than anyone expected. Only 3 days after Jake Morrison sent humanity's defiant message, the deep space sensors around Earth began screaming warnings. Admiral Susan Hayes stood in the command center of the battleship Terra Nova, watching the sensor readings with growing horror. 3 contacts, reported Lieutenant Commander Tony Clark from his station. Distance outer edge of the solar system. They are big, Admiral, really big. Susan looked at the display screen. The 3 dots moving toward Earth were each the size of a small moon. Her entire fleet of 47 ships would fit inside just one of those massive vessels. How long until they reach Earth? She asked. At current speed, 6 hours, Tony replied. But Admiral, they are accelerating. They could be here in 3 hours if they wanted to. Susan activated the ship-wide communication system. All hands, this is Admiral Hayes. We have enemy contact. 3 large vessels approaching from deep space. All ships are to implement Defense Pattern Delta and prepare for combat. She knew it was hopeless. The entire Earth defense fleet had been built to fight other human ships, not alien monsters that could probably destroy planets. But humans had never been good at giving up without a fight. On the bridge of the Terra Nova, the crew worked with calm efficiency. These men and women had trained for this moment even though they had never really believed it would come. Now that it was here, they did their jobs. Dr. Lisa Carter was also on the bridge, having transferred from the Mars station when the crisis began. She was studying the sensor data, trying to understand what humanity was facing. The energy signatures are incredible, she told Susan. Each ship is putting out more power than our entire fleet combined, but there is something strange about their approach pattern. Strange how? Susan asked. They are moving in a straight line, no evasive maneuvers, no scouts ahead. It is like they are not worried about any resistance at all. Captain Ryan Bell's voice came over the communication system from his ship, the Endeavor. Admiral, we are getting a transmission from the lead vessel. Put it through to all ships, Susan ordered. The cold voice of Ambassador Zeth Ka filled the bridge. Humans of Earth, you have made a poor choice. We offered you peace and order. You chose chaos and death. We will now demonstrate why the Dominion has ruled this galaxy for 10,000 years. The transmission ended, but immediately another voice began speaking. This one was different, harder, and more angry. This is Fleet Commander Corvex of the Dominion Warfleet. You have one final chance to surrender. Disable your weapons and prepare to be boarded. Any resistance will be met with complete destruction. Susan looked around at her crew. Every face showed the same determination. They had come too far to quit now. Open a channel to all ships, she ordered. This is Admiral Hayes to all Earth Defense Fleet vessels. We are outnumbered and outgunned, but we are not beaten. These aliens think they can scare us into giving up. They are about to learn what happens when you threaten humanity's home. She paused, thinking of her own family back on Earth. Her husband and 2 children were in the underground shelters now, along with millions of other people. All ships, scatter formation Bravo. Use the asteroid belt for cover. Make them work for every inch of space. And remember, we are not just fighting for ourselves. We are fighting for the future of every human who will ever be born. The fleet spread out across the solar system. Susan had learned from history that sometimes the smaller force could win by refusing to fight the way the enemy expected. The Dominion wanted a big battle with neat formations and clear rules. Susan was going to give them chaos instead. The first engagement happened near Jupiter. Tony Clark was commanding a small stealth ship called the Defiance. He had hidden his ship in the shadow of one of Jupiter's moons, waiting for the alien fleet to pass. When the massive Dominion ships came into range, Tony could hardly believe what he was seeing. They were beautiful in a terrifying way, covered in lights and energy fields that made them look like floating cities. But they were also moving predictably, like they had never had to worry about being attacked. Defiance to Terra Nova, Tony whispered into his radio. I am in position. Beginning sensor sweep of the lead vessel. Be careful, Tony, Susan's voice came back. We need that information, but we need you alive more. Tony guided his ship closer to the alien vessel. The Defiance was small and built for stealth, but it still seemed tiny next to the Dominion ship. He activated every sensor he had, trying to learn something useful about the enemy. What he found was both encouraging and frightening. The alien ships had energy shields that could probably stop any weapon humans had ever built. But the shields were designed to work against certain types of attacks. Energy weapons bounced off them like light off a mirror. Kinetic weapons like bullets or missiles were absorbed and deflected. But there was something the shields had never been designed to handle. Nuclear weapons created a different type of energy release, one that might be able to overload the shield system if delivered in the right way. Tony was about to report his findings when the alien ship suddenly changed course. It was turning toward his position. Defiance, you have been detected, Susan's voice crackled over the radio. Get out of there now. Tony pushed his engines to maximum power, but it was too late. A beam of green energy reached out from the Dominion ship and struck the Defiance. The little ship's shields collapsed immediately and systems began failing all over the bridge. I am hit, Tony reported. Engines failing, life support critical. But I got the sensor data. Admiral, I think I know how to hurt them. Before Susan could respond, Tony made a decision that would change the course of the war. Instead of trying to escape, he turned his damaged ship around and flew directly at the alien vessel. Tony, what are you doing? Susan shouted over the radio. Something stupid, Tony replied. Tell my wife I love her. The Defiance struck the Dominion ship's shields at full speed. The impact should have been absorbed easily, but Tony had done something clever. He had overloaded his ship's nuclear reactor just before impact, creating a focused explosion that hit the shields at exactly the right frequency. The alien ship's shields flickered and died. For the first time in the battle, a Dominion vessel was vulnerable. Captain Ryan Bell was watching from his ship, the Endeavour. He saw the opportunity immediately. "All ships, target the lead vessel," he ordered. "Concentrate all fire on the area where its shields went down." The human fleet opened. Fire with everything they had. Missiles, energy beams, and kinetic weapons all struck the Dominion ship at the same spot. The alien vessel staggered under the attack, its lights flickering. But the victory was short-lived. The other two Dominion ships moved to protect their damaged companion. Their return fire was devastating. 3 human ships were destroyed in the first few seconds. "All ships scatter," Susan ordered. "Do not engage directly, hit and run only." The battle continued for hours. The human ships darted in and out of the asteroid belt, striking at the alien vessels whenever they could. They could not do much damage, but they were learning. Dr. Carter was analyzing every piece of data they collected. "The aliens fight like they have never faced real resistance before," she told Susan. "Their tactics are perfect for fighting other organized fleets, but they do not know how to handle guerrilla warfare." "Can we win?" Susan asked. Lisa looked at the battle reports. 7 human ships had been destroyed, while the aliens had only lost 1 ship and damaged another. "Not this battle," she said honestly. "But maybe the next one." Tony Clark proved that we can hurt them. We just need to figure out how to do it better. The battle ended when the Dominion fleet withdrew to the outer edge of the solar system. They had won, but it had not been the easy victory they expected. For the first time in 10,000 years, the Dominion had been bloodied by a species they considered primitive. Fleet Commander Korvek sent one final message to Earth. "You have caused us to lose 1 ship and damage another. This was unexpected. We will return with more vessels and better tactics. Your resistance has only delayed your destruction." Susan looked at the remains of her fleet. They had lost 7 ships and hundreds of good people, but they had also learned something important. The Dominion could be hurt, they could be surprised, and they were not as invincible as they wanted everyone to believe. "Send a message to Earth," she told her communication officer. "Tell them we are still here. Tell them we are still fighting. And tell them to get ready, because this is just the beginning." The war for humanity's survival had begun. 6 months had passed since the first battle with the Dominion fleet. Earth was now surrounded by alien ships, and every human colony in the solar system was under blockade. The aliens had not attacked again, but they made sure no human ship could leave or enter the system. Colonel Amy Foster crouched behind a rock formation on Mars, watching the Dominion base through her binoculars. The aliens had built their main command center in what used to be the human settlement of New Olympia. Now it was a fortress of strange metal and glowing energy fields. Amy had been leading the Mars resistance for 3 months. Her team was made up of former miners, engineers, and soldiers who had refused to surrender when the aliens took over. They lived in the old mining tunnels beneath the planet's surface, coming out only to strike at alien patrols and supply convoys. "How many guards today?" asked Sergeant Pete Wilson, crawling up beside her. "Same as yesterday. 6 of those tall, gray ones at the main gate, 4 of the robot things patrolling the perimeter." Amy lowered her binoculars. "But there is something different. See that new building on the east side?" Pete looked through his own binoculars. "Yeah, I see it. Looks like some kind of communication array." "That is what I thought too. If we could get inside, we might be able to tap into their network." Amy had been trying to understand how the Dominion communicated across such vast distances. Human radio signals took hours to cross the solar system, but the aliens seemed to talk to their ships instantly, no matter how far away they were. Back on Earth, Dr. Lisa Carter was working on the same problem. She had set up a secret laboratory in an abandoned subway tunnel beneath New York City. The tunnel was deep enough to hide from alien sensors, and the old electrical cables provided power for her equipment. Working with her was Marcus Webb, a computer expert who had been studying alien technology since the first battle. Marcus was young, maybe 25, with messy brown hair and thick glasses. He spent most of his time staring at screens full of alien code that made no sense to anyone else. "I think I am starting to understand how they do it," Marcus said, not looking up from his computer. "They use something called quantum entanglement to link their communication devices. When you change one particle, the linked particle changes instantly no matter how far away it is." Lisa nodded. "We know about quantum entanglement, but we have never been able to use it for communication. The aliens must have solved problems that we are still working on." "That is the thing," Marcus said, finally looking up. "I do not think they solved those problems. I think they just ignored them." "What do you mean?" Marcus turned his screen so Lisa could see it. The display showed wave patterns that looked almost like music. Human communication is based on digital signals. Everything is either a 1 or a 0 on or off. But the aliens use something more like analog signals. They do not care about perfect accuracy. They care about getting the general idea across quickly. Lisa studied the patterns. "That is actually quite clever. If you do not need perfect accuracy, you can send much more information much faster." "Exactly. And there is something else. The aliens seem to have built their entire network assuming that no one would ever try to break into it. Their security is based on the idea that only authorized users would have access to quantum entanglement devices. But if someone did get access to one of their devices, they could probably read everything," Marcus finished. "The network is like a house with very strong walls but no locks on the doors." Meanwhile, on Titan, one of Saturn's moons, Lieutenant Danny Price was learning this lesson the hard way. He had been captured during a failed attack on an alien supply depot and was now being held in a Dominion prison ship. The ship was unlike anything Danny had ever seen. The walls seemed to be made of living metal that changed color depending on the mood of the aliens inside. The gravity was wrong too, sometimes pulling sideways or upward instead of down. Danny's cell was a small room with no windows and only a force field for a door. But the aliens had made a mistake. They had not bothered to search him very carefully, and they had not taken away his small emergency radio. The radio was not strong enough to reach Earth, but it could pick up the alien communication signals that filled the ship. Danny spent hours listening to the strange sounds, trying to make sense of them. Slowly, he began to understand. The aliens were not just talking to each other about prisoner management and supply schedules. They were discussing something much more important. They were afraid. The word kept coming up in their conversations, translated roughly by his radio's computer. Fear, concern, worry. The aliens were talking about humanity in a way that suggested they were not as confident as they appeared. Danny managed to record several hours of alien conversations before his chance to escape came. A malfunction in the ship's gravity system caused chaos in the corridors. Guards ran to fix the problem, leaving his section of the ship unguarded. Danny had grown up on a space station and was used to moving in unusual gravity. He made his way through the ship, following the strange sounds and lights toward what he hoped was the shuttle bay. What he found instead was even better. He stumbled into the ship's main communication center, where a single alien technician was working at a console that looked like it was made of pure light. The technician was one of the tall gray ones with 4 arms and eyes that glowed like stars. It turned to look at Danny with what might have been surprise. Danny had no choice but to act. He tackled the alien, hoping to knock it unconscious before it could raise an alarm. But the alien was stronger than it looked. They struggled for several minutes before Danny managed to grab a piece of broken equipment and hit the alien with it. The technician collapsed, and Danny found himself alone in the communication center. The console was still active, showing streams of information flowing between the prison ship and other Dominion vessels. Danny activated his radio's recording function and held it near the console. If the Resistance could decode this information, it might give them the advantage they needed. He was about to leave when he heard something that made him freeze. A conversation between 2 Dominion commanders, discussing humanity's rate of technological advancement. "The humans have progressed faster in the last century than any species in our records," one voice said. "At their current rate of development, they will be a threat to Dominion control within 200 years. "That is why we must act now," replied another voice. We have seen this pattern before. The Cartheks showed similar traits 3,000 years ago. We dealt with them before they could become a problem, and the Zephyrians before them. Always the same pattern: rapid advancement, refusal to accept guidance, eventual challenge to Dominion authority. Danny felt his blood run cold. The aliens were not just trying to control humanity. They were planning to eliminate them entirely, just as they had eliminated other species in the past. He grabbed as much recorded data as he could and made his way to the shuttle bay. The chaos from the gravity malfunction was still going on, and he managed to steal a small alien scout craft without being detected. The scout ship was fast and had stealth capabilities, but Danny had no idea how to use most of its systems. He pointed it toward Earth and hoped for the best. 3 days later, he crashed in the Pacific Ocean, where he was picked up by a human patrol boat. The information he brought back changed everything. President Lopez held an emergency meeting with the resistance leaders. The recording of alien conversations was played for everyone to hear. "They have done this before," Lopez said after the recording ended. "They have wiped out entire species that showed too much promise. We are not the first, and if we lose, we will not be the last." Colonel Foster's voice came over the communication link from Mars. "Then we make sure we do not lose. I have been planning an attack on the main Dominion base here. If we can capture their communication equipment intact, we might be able to use their own network against them." Dr. Carter spoke up from her underground laboratory. "Amy is right. Marcus and I have been working on ways to hack into their quantum network, but we need direct access to one of their main communication nodes." "The base on Mars has what we need," Amy said. "But it will be dangerous. We will be going up against their best defenses." Admiral Hayes, whose fleet was still hiding in the asteroid belt, added her voice to the discussion. "I can provide a distraction. If I attack their orbital stations at the same time you hit the ground base, it might divide their attention." The plan was risky, but it was their best chance. For too long, humanity had been fighting defensively, reacting to alien moves. Now, it was time to take the fight to the enemy. "Do it," President Lopez ordered. "All of you. Hit them with everything we have got. Show them that humans do not go quietly into the dark." The preparations began immediately. Across the solar system, resistance fighters prepared for the most important battle of their lives. They were still outnumbered and outgunned, but they had something the aliens did not expect. They had hope. The attack on Mars began at exactly 0600 hours Earth time. Colonel Amy Foster crouched in the tunnel entrance, watching her team make final preparations. 23 fighters, all that remained of the Mars resistance, were about to attack a base defended by over 200 alien soldiers. "Remember the plan," Amy whispered into her radio. "Team Alpha hits the main gate as a distraction. Team Beta takes the communication center. Once we have control of their network, we download everything and get out." Sergeant Pete Wilson checked his weapon one more time. It was a modified mining laser, powerful enough to cut through alien armor but crude compared to Dominion technology. "What if their reinforcements arrive before we finish?" "Then we improvise," Amy replied. "We have been doing that for 6 months. We are good at it by now." High above Mars, Admiral Susan Hayes was leading her own part of the attack. Her fleet, rebuilt with salvaged alien technology and hidden human shipyards, emerged from the asteroid belt in perfect formation. 38 ships, including her new flagship, the New Horizon. "All ships target the orbital defense platforms," Susan commanded. "Make them think we are going for the space stations. Do not hit the surface until Amy's team is clear." The Dominion forces were caught by surprise. For months, the human fleet had been hiding, licking their wounds and avoiding direct confrontation. The aliens had grown used to hunting small groups of raiders. They were not prepared for a coordinated assault. Captain Nicole Grant, commanding the destroyer Liberty Bell, watched her missiles streak toward an alien defense platform. "Direct hit," she reported. "Platform is down," but the real surprise came from an unexpected source. As the human fleet engaged the Dominion ships, new vessels appeared on the edge of the battle zone. These ships were clearly alien, but they were firing on the Dominion forces. "Admiral, We have unknown contacts attacking the enemy, reported Lieutenant Commander Beth Parker from the New Horizons sensor station. They appear to be helping us. Susan stared at the tactical display. Open a channel to the unknown ships. The response came immediately. The voice was alien but spoke perfect English. Human Admiral, this is Commander Vex Tal of the Keth, Rebellion Fleet. We have been waiting for this moment for many years. The Keth? Susan had never heard of them. We are one of the species conquered by the Dominion long ago, Vextal explained as his ships continued firing on the enemy. We have been waiting for someone strong enough to stand against them. Your resistance has inspired uprisings across 12 star systems. Susan felt a surge of hope. Humanity was not alone after all. On the surface of Mars, Amy's team was fighting their way through the Dominion base. The alien guards were well trained and heavily armed, but they were not used to fighting humans who seemed to ignore impossible odds. Team Alpha had done their job perfectly. The main gate was under constant attack, drawing most of the defenders away from the communication center. Amy led Team Beta through a maintenance tunnel that brought them right under their target building. Charges set, reported Corporal Jack Turner, the team's explosives expert. 30 seconds. The explosion blew a hole in the floor of the communication center. Amy and her team rushed through before the aliens could react. The room was filled with strange equipment that hummed and glowed with its own light. Marcus, are you getting this? Amy spoke into her radio. Dr. Carter's computer expert was monitoring the mission from Earth. I see it. Marcus Webb's voice crackled through the static. Amy, you need to get to the central console. It looks like a pillar of blue light in the center of the room. Amy fought her way through the alien technicians who were trying to defend their equipment. Her modified laser cut through their armor, but more guards were arriving every second. Pete, hold the entrance, she shouted. Do not let anyone through. Sergeant Wilson and 3 other fighters formed a defensive line at the hole in the floor. Their weapons were crude, but their determination was absolute. Amy reached the central console and plugged in Marcus's hacking device. I am connected, she reported. How long do you need? 2 minutes, Marcus replied from his underground laboratory on Earth. I am downloading their entire communication network. Amy, this is incredible. I can see messages going to dozens of star systems. The Dominion is much bigger than we thought. How much bigger? Amy asked, ducking as an alien energy beam passed over her head. They control over 300 species across this part of the galaxy, Marcus said. But Amy, there are rebellions everywhere. The Keth are not the only ones fighting back. Outside the communication center, the battle was getting worse. More Dominion forces were arriving, and Team Alpha was being pushed back from the main gate. Amy, we need to go, Pete called out. They are bringing up heavy weapons. 30 more seconds, Marcus pleaded over the radio. I am almost done. Amy looked around the room. Dead alien technicians lay scattered across the floor, and her own. People were running low on ammunition, but the blue pillar of light continued to transfer information to Marcus's device. Time is up, Pete shouted. They are breaking through. Amy made a decision that would change the war. Instead of disconnecting the device and running, she activated the emergency protocol that Marcus had programmed into it. Marcus, execute chaos. Protocol, she ordered. Amy, no, Marcus replied. If you do that, every alien on Mars will know where you are. Do it, Amy commanded. Marcus triggered his virus. The program spread through the Dominion's quantum network like wildfire, disrupting communications across the entire solar system. But it also sent a feedback pulse through the communication center on Mars. The explosion destroyed the entire building and everything in it. Amy and her team were caught in the blast, but they had accomplished their mission. The virus continued spreading through the Dominion network. On ships across the galaxy, alien commanders found themselves cut off from their central command. Local commanders who had spent centuries following orders from above suddenly had to make decisions on their own. Many of them were not very good at it. Admiral Hayes watched the chaos spread through the Dominion fleet above Mars. Ships that had been fighting in perfect coordination suddenly began making mistakes. Some fired on their own allies, Others retreated without orders. "All ships press the attack," Susan commanded. "Hit them while they are confused." The combined human and Keth fleets struck with everything they had. Without their communication network, the Dominion forces could not coordinate their defense. Ship after ship was destroyed or disabled. Commander Vextal's voice came over the radio again. "Admiral Hayes, this is better than we dared hope. Our forces and other systems are reporting similar confusion among Dominion fleets." "How many other systems?" Susan asked. 14 so far, and the number is growing. Your virus has spread to the core network. We estimate that 60% of the Dominion's command structure has been disrupted. On Earth, President Lopez received the reports with amazement. In one day, humanity had gone from desperate survivors to leaders of a galactic rebellion. "What is our status?" she asked Dr. Carter, who had moved her operations to the restored United Nations building. "Marcus's virus is still spreading," Lisa reported. "We are getting communication requests from over 40 different species. They all want to join the rebellion." "And our losses?" Lisa's expression grew sad. "We lost Colonel Foster and her entire team on Mars, but their sacrifice may have saved not just humanity but dozens of other species." President Lopez looked out the window at New York City. For the first time in months, people were celebrating in the streets. News of the victory had spread quickly, and humanity dared to hope again. "Send a message to all rebel forces," Lopez ordered. "Tell them that this is just the beginning. The Dominion has ruled through fear and isolation for 10,000 years. Today we showed them that their victims can unite and fight back." But even as she spoke, Lopez knew the hardest battle was still to come. The Dominion would not give up easily. Somewhere in the galaxy, the alien rulers were already planning their response. The rebellion had begun, but the war was far from over. 3 months had passed since the virus attack that crippled the Dominion's communication network. The galaxy was now in open rebellion, with 47 different species fighting against their former rulers. But the Dominion was not finished yet. Admiral Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his new flagship, Humanity's Dawn. He had been promoted after Admiral Hayes was injured in a battle near Jupiter. Now he commanded not just the human fleet, but ships from 12 different rebel species. "Sir, long-range sensors are detecting a massive fleet approaching from the galactic core," reported Lieutenant Sarah Kim, his new sensor officer. "It is bigger than anything we have seen before." Jake looked at the display screen. The approaching fleet was enormous, over 1,000 ships of various sizes. At the center was a vessel so large it barely fit on the screen. "That must be the Dominion Council's personal fleet," said Dr. Lisa Carter, who was now serving as the rebellion's chief science advisor. "They are bringing everything they have left." Captain Nicole Grant's voice came over the communication system from her ship, the New Liberty. "Admiral, we are getting transmissions from rebel fleets across the galaxy. They are all reporting similar massive fleets heading for their systems." Jake realized what was happening. The Dominion was not just coming to destroy Earth. They were launching simultaneous attacks on every rebel world, trying to end all the uprisings at once. "Send a message to all rebel forces," Jake ordered. "Tell them to converge on Earth. If we are going to make our final stand, we do it here together." Over the next 2 days, ships arrived from across the galaxy. The human solar system became crowded with vessels of every shape and size. Some looked like crystalline sculptures, others like living creatures made of metal, but they all had one thing in common. They were here to fight for freedom. Commander Vextal of the Keth arrived with the largest rebel fleet, over 300 ships. His people had been fighting the Dominion for longer than anyone else, and they knew the enemy's tactics better than most. "Admiral Morrison," Vextal said during their strategy meeting, "the Council fleet is commanded by Supreme Overlord Keth Varn himself. He is the oldest member of the Dominion Council and has never lost a battle." "Well," Jake replied, "there is a first time for everything." The final battle began when the Dominion fleet reached the edge of the solar system. Supreme Overlord Keth Varn sent a message to all rebel forces. "Creatures of chaos." His voice was like ice scraping on metal. "You have interfered with the natural order for the last time. The Dominion has brought peace to this galaxy for 10,000 years. We will not allow primitive species to destroy what we have built. President Lopez, speaking from the United Nations building, responded for all of humanity and their allies. Supreme Overlord, your idea of peace is slavery. Your idea of order is stagnation. You have kept entire species from growing and learning and becoming what they could be. That ends today. The battle that followed was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. 1,000 Dominion ships faced 800 rebel vessels from 47 different species. The fighting spread across the entire solar system, from Mercury to Pluto. Jake Morrison commanded the center of the rebel line, trying to coordinate ships that had never fought together before. The Keth used energy weapons that could slice through enemy hulls like butter. The Zephyrian ships could phase in and out of normal space, appearing behind enemy lines to strike and disappear. Human ships used their nuclear weapons and unpredictable tactics to confuse the enemy. But the Dominion had advantages too. Their ships were bigger, their weapons more powerful, and their crews had been fighting for thousands of years. Slowly, they began to push the rebels back toward Earth. "We are losing too many ships," Captain Grant reported from the New Liberty. "The enemy is overwhelming our left flank." Jake watched the tactical display with growing concern. For every Dominion ship they destroyed, they lost 2 rebel vessels. At this rate, the battle would be over in hours. That was when Dr. Carter called him with an idea that sounded completely insane. "Jake, what if we do not try to win this battle?" she asked over the radio. "What if we try to win the war instead?" "What do you mean?" "The Dominion's entire power structure is based on absolute control. Every decision has to be approved by the Council. Every order has to come from the top. But what if we cut off the head?" Jake understood immediately. "You want us to attack the Council ship directly?" "Marcus has been studying their network since we captured it," Lisa explained. "He thinks he can upload a new virus directly into their central command system. But someone has to get close enough to make physical contact." Jake looked at the massive Council ship on his display. It was protected by hundreds of smaller vessels and energy shields that could probably stop anything the rebels had. "That is suicide," he said. "Maybe," Lisa agreed. "But if it works, the entire Dominion command structure will collapse. Every ship in their fleet will lose its connection to central authority. Local commanders will not know what to do." Jake made the hardest decision of his life. "Do it. Send me the virus. I will take the Humanities Dawn in personally." "Jake, no." Nicole Grant's voice came over the radio. "Let me do it. My ship is faster." "This is my decision to make," Jake replied. "All ships, this is Admiral Morrison. I am taking the flagship on a direct attack run at the enemy command vessel. Do not follow me. Keep fighting and protect Earth." The Humanities Dawn broke away from the main battle and headed straight for the Council ship. Jake pushed his engines to maximum power, weaving between enemy vessels and dodging their fire. "Sir, we are taking heavy damage," reported Lieutenant Kim. "Shields are down to 20%. "Keep going," Jake ordered. "We just need to get close enough." The Council ship grew larger and larger on the screen. Jake could see weapons turning to track his approach. He knew he would not survive this, but maybe his daughter Katie would have a chance to grow up free. "Admiral, this is Marcus Webb." The computer expert's voice came over the radio from Earth. "I am uploading the virus to your system now. You need to make physical contact with their hull and transfer it directly." "Understood," Jake replied. "All crew prepare for impact." The Humanities Dawn slammed into the Council ship's shield generator at full speed. The collision destroyed Jake's ship instantly, but the virus made it through. Marcus's program spread into the Dominion central network like digital wildfire. Within seconds, every Dominion ship in the solar system lost contact with its command authority. Local commanders who had spent their entire lives following orders suddenly found themselves alone and confused. Some ships continued fighting out of habit. Others retreated immediately. Many simply stopped moving, their crews unsure what to do without orders from above. Captain Grant took command of the rebel fleet and pressed their advantage. "All ships, target the ships that are still fighting. Ignore the ones that have stopped." The battle turned into a rout. Without central coordination, The Dominion fleet fell apart. Ship after ship surrendered or fled toward deep space. Supreme Overlord Keth Varn, his own ship crippled by the virus, sent one final transmission. "This is not over, humans. The galaxy will fall into chaos without the Dominion to guide it. You have doomed yourselves and everyone else." "Maybe," President Lopez replied from Earth. "But at least we will be free to make our own mistakes." The war was over, but the work was just beginning. Across the galaxy, former Dominion worlds were declaring independence. Trade routes that had been static for millennia were opening up. Technologies that had been suppressed were being rediscovered. 6 months later, Captain Grant stood on the bridge of the exploration ship New Frontier as it approached an unknown star system. Beside her, Dr. Carter studied readings from sensors that combined human and alien technology. 17 inhabited planets in this system alone, Lisa reported. And we are getting signals from species we have never encountered before. Nicole smiled as she watched the stars ahead. The galaxy was vast and full of wonders. For the first time in 10,000 years, every species was free to explore and discover and grow. They had been ordered to obey, but Earth had chosen rebellion. In doing so, they had not just freed themselves, but an entire galaxy. The universe was dangerous and uncertain, but it was also full of possibilities. And humans had always been good at turning possibilities into realities.